Everyone loves to talk about Austin's growth, the new towers, Tesla, Samsung, the airport expansion, data centers, all of the shiny projects that are coming soon. But what about the projects that are promised and then disappeared? Because here's the reality, Austin is quietly losing billions in investment, federal funding is drying up, private developers are pulling the plug, and some of the biggest projects in the pipeline, the ones that were supposed to create jobs, housing, and new skylines, well, they're either stalled, canceled, or completely up for sale. What I want to do in today's video is actually highlight some of the projects that we are actually losing, what they were supposed to bring, why they collapsed, and what the meaning this is for the Austin future. On this channel, I talk about everything, and as a real estate agent, a lot of you expect me just to sell Austin. I built this channel solely on the fact that I wanted to bring value to those that either live in Austin, that are maybe looking at Austin, and give them the full scope, things to think about. And so that's what I want to do. In fact, I am doing this in Dallas at an event. I am so dedicated to continuing to give you this information. I have to break away from a conference to come do the news here. Please, please, please ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you find value in this. If you hate me for bringing this information, make sure you write that in the comment section. And if you love it, also do that. I'm Jeremy Knight, your favorite Austin realtor. So I really want to go through the big, beautiful bill that just passed in Congress, because that had some major ramifications here for the Austin area with the passing of that bill. And what happened is a lot of the federal funding that we were hoping to hit is completely gone. And at the end of this video, I actually want to go through some of the important projects that are absolutely gone. So make sure you subscribe if you have not. First up, let's talk about Washington, D.C. and the one big, beautiful bill. Austin's new Intergovernmental Relations Office put out a memo saying that $300 million in federal funding is either canceled, paused, or under review. The one big one, which was the largest project here in Austin, was the I-35 cap and stitch. I've actually talked about this on this channel as some of the upcoming future developments here in Austin. Well, $105 billion of that project is now completely gone. This was one of the most high-profile projects downtown. The idea was to build a cap over I-35 with parks, public spaces, and connections to neighborhoods divided by the freeway. The thinking was East Austin was the cultural side of Austin with arts and a lot of, lack of better words, there was a lot of different culture on the east side that wasn't on the west side. And this was blocking, the I-35 was actually blocking that crossover. So this bridge was going to bridge the gap between that and connect East Austin and main Austin. That is gone. Now, the city of Austin has still been working on plans to do the cap stitch. It's definitely going to be scaled back, but I'm curious, did you like the cap stitch? It was going to be parks, a whole bunch of stuff. I'm curious. I'm a little bummed because I thought it would be great to have a tunnel in that area and then really more walkable space and more parks. Austin has lots of amazing parks, but some people like the growth, some people don't. I'm curious what you think. Here's one of the other things that is now up in limbo. So there was a solar credit, and it was solar for all. It was $32 billion roughly. This program would have installed solar panels for low-income households. The city council even approved a partnership with Harris County. Now it's in the termination letters. And so I think this would have been a good opportunity to get more solar. The challenge with Texas is just solar in general. I talked to a lot of homeowners that bought solar, and then when they go to sell their home, it's negligible. In fact, it even costs them money. I'm curious, do you think solar panels actually add value to a home? I'm only talking about adding value to a home, not are they good or bad, right? So you tell me in the comment section, is removing $32 billion of accessing low-income households to getting more solar, is that a bad thing that the federal government pulled this dollars back? You tell me in the comment section. Safe Streets for All was another that got pulled. This is $10.5 million, and this was paused. This program was going to improve dangerous intersections across the city, 60 crash-prone locations with sidewalks, lighting, and signage. Literally a project designed to save lives is how they put up this bill. or this project. Now, some of these projects, what's interesting is that I don't think there was full plans for some of these projects, the cap stitch being one of them. So another one that's at risk was the Barton Springs Bridge. So we're talking $32 million is at risk here. That bridge you drive across to get over Zilker Park, yeah, that one, it needs major upgrades. The money is sitting at the Federal Highways Administration, but the agreement isn't signed. So this is another $32 million to upgrade that bridge. That is completely gone. Now, all of these dollars, again, were all federal funding that the Biden administration had earmarked to send to Austin and other cities, but the One Big Beautiful Bill reclaimed a lot of that. So these are some of the ones that are still up to potentially be removed. Flood protection was another really big one. Now, you just know that we had a massive flood here on the Austin area. $50 million was completely canceled. Austin is one of the fastest growing risk flood cities in the country. This money was to build resilient infrastructure, and that is gone. I could get into the weeds in some of these projects on the pros and cons of each one of these projects, but I just want to give you the overall highlight of what is, gone. I don't know 100% that this $50 million would have fixed a lot of the flood issues in the Austin area. The next was the EV chargers. So they were going to build a few more EV charger stations. There was a lot more to this one, but that's $15 million worth of investments. Those are on pause as of right now as well. The bottom line with this is that the federal priorities have absolutely shifted, and Austin just got left holding the bag with some of these, which means if we still want these projects, either local taxpayers foot the bill or we go without. The other thing that Austin has been doing is raising the hotel tax. And so the hotel tax is actually paying for the whole rebuild of the convention center, which we've talked about on this channel. So I'm curious, the federal funding that's dried up on some of these, do you agree or not agree on the pullbacks on these? Now, the next I'm going to go through some of the projects that were tasked to actually come and bring jobs to the Austin area. Now, all of those would have brought jobs to the Austin area, but we're going to talk about some of the other data centers and things that it's crazy. On my Instagram, I get so many people angry with me for bringing this news. And what I find interesting is people who just don't want the growth. So I'm curious, number one, I put out other videos. In fact, I'll probably link some videos here. Do you want the growth or not, right? And do you like some of these data centers and things? Because this San Marcos data center was going to be a $1.5 billion investment. This was going to be a $1.5 billion data center campus tied to Cyrus One. Now, they just failed to get city council approval. This was supposed to be a huge 5 building, 76 megawatt each, millions in property tax revenue. Data centers are really exploding all over Round Rock, Pflugerville, Hutto, up to Taylor. And the Austin-San Antonio corridor is now the #2 fastest growing data center market in the US. So here's why it failed. Residents pushed back with concerns about noise, water use, power demands, and confusion with a nearby gas-powered data center. The council vote fell short of the supermajority, so the project is stalled, but developers could reapply. The bigger picture here is that with developers being able to reapply, they can go back to the process again. So we might actually see this data center back on the radar very soon. But some of these city councils are not getting the votes that they need. I'm curious, do you think a $1.5 billion, data center down in San Marcos would have been beneficial for the San Marcos area? They were talking about all the tax revenue that would have come in from this for local, to go to schools and a whole bunch of things. In fact, I did an Instagram video about this not too long ago. So I'm curious, millions and millions of dollars in tax revenue just gone from this one alone. Here's another one that's really interesting. This one, again, failed to get city council approval after already kind of having city council approval a while back. And now this is the Leander Springs. Now this is up in Leander. This was announced in 2021. This was pitched as a $1 billion plus mega development with 1,600 apartments, a hotel, a convention center, 1 million square feet of retail, and a centerpiece would be a 4-acre crystal lagoon. Fast forward to today, the lagoon never has been built. The land is empty. The city has canceled $22 million in incentives deals after the developer missed deadlines. Contractors have filed millions in liens against the developer as well. So there's millions of dollars that have already been spent on this project. And in August, the Leander City Council unanimously denied the developer updated PUD request, raising concerns about finances, outreach, and even typos in their paperwork. I'm sorry, if you're a developer, you got to get your typos under control. The developer insists they'll move forward no one way or another, but without approval, they can only build 35,000 square feet of retail, a fraction of what was promised. This was supposed to be Leander's crown jewel. Instead, it's become a cautionary tale of over-promising, underdeveloping, and drowning in debt before the lagoon was even filled with water. A lot of people had pushed back on this project as well, of where we're going to get the water, and I think that's a question you're probably going to write down in there. I've jokingly said, and people get so mad, I feel like in 2025, people cannot deal with jokes. I said we were going to get it out of the Gulf of America. I know. Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, you tell me which one it is. Part 4 of this is the South Lamar skyline. Now, this project, I'm personally sad that this is no longer moving forward. Now, this is off South Lamar and the 290 area, like Ben Wyatt area. And there's a lot of, Toys R Us had been in there. There was a bunch of different stores. Golf Galaxy was in there, the park. So what they were going to do was take and build a huge development. And there was tons of buzz about this. Again, like I said, it was like right there near the 360 loop. The old Toys R Us was there. The city had approved rezoning in 2023 for a massive redevelopment. Think towers, mixed use retail, hundreds of units. But now the developer, Bar Shop and Ollie's, says the project is on hold. Why? Well, the market conditions are one, rising construction costs, higher interest rates, partner shakeups. Even Lionstone, one of the original backers, shut it down. The current partner, Pennybacker Capital, is still involved, but they haven't even filed permits yet. So what's the bottom line here is, like, don't expect cranes anytime soon. Don't expect the skyline in South Austin in this little area to change. I'm actually, again, super bummed about this project because I think it would have brought in a good amount of apartments. A lot of people don't want density in the Austin area. I think this would have definitely helped with some of our price issues. There was some, affordable housing involved, and plus it just brought a lot more restaurants that have actually been shut down from that whole complex. If you go through there now, Pint House Pizza is like the only thing still standing. So I'm curious, are you kind of bummed about that? Because one thing that is lost in this not being developed is jobs, and another job killer just happened here in Manor. So I've talked about Manor and Hutto. We've talked about a lot of the data centers that are moving over here, and Manor potentially just lost another 1,000 jobs of an industrial park that is not going to happen. Han's Laser, a Chinese manufacturing giant that supplies Tesla, Samsung, bought 262 acres in Manor to build a green energy industrial park. Now, the plans included EV battery pack assembly, charging infrastructure, manufacturing, and millions of square feet in industrial space. This wasn't just a big real estate deal. It was supply chain project tied directly to Austin's biggest employers. But now Hans is selling the land, and here's why. Economic and political barriers, tariffs, scrutiny of Chinese land ownership in Texas, and shifting US-China relations. So instead of $1 billion park and 1,000 jobs, Manor is left with an empty site up for grabs. Now, I imagine that this is going to sell and another developer is going to come in there. A lot of developers are eyeing this as opportunity zones to bring in data centers. So I'm curious, do you not like all the big data centers coming in? Some people do, some people do not. So let's zoom out here a little bit. These aren't just headlines about canceling projects, they're signals. Federal funding cuts mean Austin taxpayers will definitely have to spend more money on roads, bridges, and clean energy. Do you think that TxDOT should be funding some of these projects as well? I mean, look, Texas has $35 billion in slush funds sitting there. I think slush fund is not the right word that they would like to hear, but there's a $35 billion of money just sitting there that they haven't used. So I'm curious if you think some of that money should be spent on more infrastructure. Failed developments like the Leander Springs on South Lamar erode trust between developers and the communities. And let's just be honest, nobody really likes these data center centers. Meanwhile, Dallas and Houston are waiting in the wings with lower barriers and big incentives. If Austin stalls, those cities will definitely scoop up some of these jobs. There's lots of news of IBM moving to Houston, some other of these developers and developments moving to Dallas instead. So I think at the end of the day, losing jobs in the Austin area isn't great, but the problem is that some of these projects do have a hard time with all of the wins ahead of us. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I'm Jeremy Knight, your favorite Austin realtor. If you haven't subscribed, now is the time to do it. And if you've waited all the way to the end and gotten here, here's a little surprise. Thank you for everything. We'll see you in the next video.